Hi everyone, welcome back to BeCloudguru. Today in this video, I'm going to talk about Azure Migrate, the all-in-one tool at Azure platform to migrate your on-premise physical virtual machines like your VMware, Hyper-V to Azure. We can also use Azure Migrate to perform migrations from AWS to Azure. In this video, we'll see how we can migrate our EC2 instances from AWS to Azure platform. Guys, the same approach can also be used to migrate your physical servers to AWS. Basically, so this is the approach by which you can achieve two different targets. Either you can use it to migrate your AWS instances or any other cloud platform instances to Azure, or your physical machines from on-premise data centers to the Azure platform. So let's begin, guys. First of all, we'll see what is Azure Migrate. Basically, it's a centralized tool which helps you to assess. Yes, guys, you can assess as well as migrate your on-premise infrastructure, that might be your physical machines or your virtual machines, your applications, your data to Azure. It will provide you a unified migration platform to start, run, and track your migrations. And it also contains a range of tools which you'll see on the next slide. So Azure Migrate tools will give you certain default or Microsoft basic tools for your assessment called Azure Migrate Server Assessment. It helps you to discover and assess your on-premise VMware, Hyper-V virtual machines as well as your physical servers, so that you can figure out whether they are ready for migration to Azure or not. Once you are done with your migrations, you can use a server migration tool to actually migrate your virtual machines, your physical servers, or any other type of virtualized machines and your virtual machine from the public cloud to Azure. So server migration tool would help in doing that. Then you can also use your DMA or database migration assistant to assess your on-premise SQL Server databases for migration to your Azure SQL DB or your SQL managed instances or your SQL on Azure virtual machines. Once you are done with the assessment of your databases, you can use database migration services or DMS to migrate your on-premise databases to Azure virtual machines running SQL, or you can use Azure SQL DB or your SQL managed instances. You can also use Azure Migrate to assess or migrate your web-based applications which is built upon .NET or PHP platform, and you can run them on Azure App Services. If you have plenty of data, I mean if you have a lot of data which you cannot transfer to Azure with either with the site-to-site VPN or your express route or your public internet, you can make use of the service called Azure Databox, where you can order a disk from Microsoft. You can copy your data and send it back to Microsoft, and Microsoft will put it back. So you can use that as well. These are the default tools or the Microsoft tools. Other than that, you will also see a tool called Movere, which Microsoft have recently bought. Other than that, there are multiple tools from the different independent software vendors or ISVs to migrate and assess your workloads. Like you can use Carbonite, you can use Cloudemize, you can use Lakeside or Device 42. Out of these tools, there are certain tools which can only be used for assessment, and there are certain tools like Cloudemize which can assess as well as migrate your servers. You can also use Turbonomic, Unify Cloud. All these are the tools which you can use. So guys, this is all about the your Azure Migrate tool. Now I'll discuss with you the kind of architecture which we are gonna use for this particular demonstration. So we have a web server or IIS server, which is a Windows 2016. It's a small server with a 1 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, and we would be migrating this server to Azure. And we would also have an appliance server, that is your Windows 2016. This requires to be an 8 GB and 32 GB, 8 virtual CPU and 32 GB RAM in the server, because this is what its minimum requirement as recommended by Azure. You can also see the ports which you need to open at your end, as well as the free disk space, guys. Azure recommend that you should have at least 2 drives or 2 disks with at least 600 GB of the free space on that server. So I have already set it up these 2 servers, so to save some of the time so that the video should not be that long. The migration strategy which we are going to use in this particular demonstration would be rehosting or lift and shift. To know more about migration strategies, please see my other videos where I have discussed at length what are the migration strategies are there on Azure platform which you can use while planning your migration from your on-premise to Azure platform. Here, this appliance server will require a bit of a discussion because it will act as a bridge between Azure and the source machine, and it would be required to set up the discovery replication of our servers. And before we go and start the demonstration, let's see how does the web server look like. It's a small virtual machine, as I said initially. And if I go to the web server, as I said, these are the EC2 instances based of AWS. And this is my public IP of my web server. If I just put it here, so this is a small mini web page which you can click and it will take you to the different websites. So that's how this is the server which we're gonna migrate to Azure. So let's begin, guys. So this is my Azure portal or the dashboard. You can either search here for Azure Migrate. If you have recently used it, you can see it on the dashboard itself or the home screen itself, or you can go here and look in the all services. So this is a different way where you can find out where the Azure Migrate service is located. So let's go and find out Azure Migrate here in the search bar. So this is, you click here. Once you are in here, you need to create a project basically. So if you go in this particular demonstration, we're going to migrate our Windows based server. So let's click Access and Migrate servers, and currently we do not have anything. So let's add tools here, because before you start doing anything you need to add certain tools. So let's click on add tools. It will start giving me an option. So before we can add our tool, we need to create a project. So project, this is my subscription, this is my resource group. I do not think I have a resource group, so I'll create new for this one. Let's call it Azure Migrate. So I'll say okay, and this is the project name. Again, I call it Azure Migrate 1. And this is the geography where which is basically guys, remember, this is not the geography where your machines would be migrated to. This is the place where the metadata about this migration project will be stored. So it does not mean if I select Asia Pacific here that I can only move my machines to the Asia Pacific region. No, I can move it to anywhere, but the metadata about this migration project will only be stored at this location. So I'll keep it here only. Click on next. So this is where it asks me to select the tools. So first you get an option to select your assessment tools. Other than the Azure Migrate server assessment, you have tools like Cloud, from Cloudimize, Corentak, Device42, Tabonomic, and Unify Cloud. All these tools you can use. You can also use Movere, which is a Microsoft tool now. And if you don't want to do any kind of an assessment, you can skip it, which we are going to do now, so that we can keep the video short. So I'm not doing any assessment because I have got a very small one server. So I'm going to skip the assessment, or let's not skip it. Let's say how to select it. Select the tool, click on next. Will not carry out the assessment, but we can always select the tool and keep it in our toolbox. Now once you have selected your assessment tool, the next option would be where you can choose the tool for your migration. In this case, the first one you can see this Azure Migrate server migration. That's the default tool from your Azure. Other than that, you can see Carbonite, Corentak, and the Rackware. So all these tools you can use. In this demonstration, we are going to use server migration tool from Azure Migrate. I'm going to select that and click on next. They're asking me to review the option which I have inputted earlier. I'm okay with that. Let's add the tools. So it is adding tool to my project. So it's done. So you can see that if you look at here, so these are the tools. This is my server assessment tools, and this is my migration tool. So before we can start doing any migration, we need to do the discovery. And before that, guys, I'll show you what kind of a servers I have. So I have kept them ready for this demonstration. So this is going to be my appliance server. If you can see that, this is appliance server with the 8 virtual CPUs and 32 GB of RAM. And other one which I have is my web server. So this is where the web server is. If you click on here, you'll see that. So this is my source web server. It is a small server with a 1 CPU and 1 GB of RAM. And here I have installed IS on it, and we will be migrating this particular server to the Azure platform from AWS. So let's go back and start the discovery process. So this is where you can discover your servers. Other than that, before, let's have a look on the tool itself. Here you can select your migration goals, whether you want to migrate servers or databases or VDIs or web applications or Databox. In this particular demonstration, as our migration goal is to migrate our servers, so I'll click on servers, and then in the migration tools, I'll go for discover. Before we do anything, we need to finalize the registration under the discover option. And first thing which you need to specify what kind of machines and what kind of virtualization you're using for your source machine. So we are not using VMware, we're not using Hyper-V. So my machines comes under not virtualized or other kind of a machine. I'll keep it there. Now the target region. So guys, there's a difference here. Earlier we selected a geography which would contain the metadata about my project. This is the target region which will gonna hold my target machines, or this would be the target for my migration. So if let's go to the, I'm gonna keep it to Southeast Asia because that would be this one. It's asking us to confirm, because once target region is confirmed, it cannot be changed. So after your confirmation, the server migration tool will allow application and migration only to the selected target regions. Okay, that's something which you need to take care. So I click confirm and create the resources. Now the necessary resources will be created here. So now the deployment is in progress. Once we are done with that, we will get two different options to download the tools. Basically, you need to download assessment and the migration tool, which you need to install on the appliance server. So it's a software tool or the utility which would be provided by Azure, which you need to take it to your appliance server. If it is on AWS, you need to take it there. If it is on your on-premise, then physical server, you need to install it on the physical server. Once that installation is done, then you can start discovering your machines. Without that, discovery will not be happening. So it's going to take some time. I'm going to pause the video and come back again. Okay, it's done. So this is it says what kind of an appliance type you need to have. So click here, you get two options. It's an install an application appliance or install a scale out appliance. If this is your very first appliance in your for your migration, then you are going to use the first option, install an application appliance. If you already are using appliances and you want to scale out the your migration, you can select the second one, because this is the very first one. So we're going to select the application appliance. Once you've done that, it asks you to download and install the application software. So as I said before, that you need to make sure that your server sizing has been as per the recommendation, which I told you earlier, that you would need to have at least 8 virtual CPU and 32 GB of RAM, 8 CPUs and 33 GB RAM in the server, and the port numbers, as you've seen in that PPT, those port numbers should be open. So I'll go and download this tool, and once the download, and after that, after the download, I need to take it to the appliance server and install it, and after which installation we'll come back and download this registry or the vault key here, which we need to take to the appliance server again. So I'm going to download it, and I'll pause the server and take it to your appliance server. So guys, I have downloaded the application appliance software as well as this migration vault key, and I have copied them to the appliance server. So let's go back to the appliance server and start installing it. So this is my appliance server. This is the software which I have just downloaded, and now we'll need to install it. So run this MSI file here. So it will start extracting the files and start installing the software for us. So before you begin, you need to find out whether it's a very first configuration server and process server you want to install on the same server, or you can want to add additional process servers to scale out development. As I said, if it is a additional appliance server, then you can add additional process server, but because it's the very first one, so we need to install the configuration server as well as the process server here. Click on next. So you need to accept the license agreement. Here you need to provide a site recovery registration key, which we have already downloaded from the Azure portal. So browse it and put it here. This is my key. Next. Now whether it's asking whether you want to connect through a proxy server or without a proxy server. This is a connection without a proxy server, so I'll go ahead with the first option. Now there are certain prerequisite check will happen, and once those are done, then it will allow you to move to the next part of the installation. Now you need to provide the MySQL root password, because MySQL would be installed with this installation of the tool. So I'll put a password here. This is the password. So let's go next. Do you want to protect your VM virtual machines? I said no. Let's click next. This is the install location. Next. Now you need to select the network interface. We have only one, so I'm going to select that one. And you can see it's asking to open the port for the application traffic, that is a 9443, which has already been opened. Click on next. So this is the summary and install. There are multiple components would be downloaded and installed, like a MySQL server, then your IS server would be configured. The other third-party components would be required to install. So let's do one thing, let these components get installed and we'll come back. I'll pause the video for some time. So guys, you can see that our configuration process server or the appliance server has been successfully installed. All the components has been successfully done. So let's finish it. It's asking us to restart the server, so we need to restart the server now. And this is the connection passphrase has been generated for us, which we need to copy to the clipboard, because this would be required while installing agents on the source and target environment. So I'll keep it on the clipboard. Yes. And before we go ahead, it asking you to add the account. This account would be the account which will have access to your source server. So let's add this account. Before that, let's keep that passphrase somewhere safe. I'll keep it here. This is my passphrase. I'll keep it here. Now let's call it, this account name is admin. Username would be your administrator. is the username for my source machine. The password, let me copy and paste the password now. So this is the password here for my web server. I'll copy and paste it here. This is the password. I'll confirm the password. Click on OK. It says successfully added. Now you need to do the vault registration, and this is where you need to provide the recovery services vault file. So I'll go and browse. This is the file here, and this is connecting directly without a proxy, so I'll register it. So once it gets registered, I will restart the server, and then we'll start installing our agent on the source machine. It's going to take some time. I'll show you the location of the source file, where you'll get a source file. Let's go there. It would be in the C drive. Or you can say, let's copy it here, or let's type it down here. So this will be my program data, and then your ASR, sorry, backslash ASR, then your home, service systems, then your push install SVC, and the repository. So here you can find all the installable agents as per the operating system, which you can install on the source machine. We are looking for a system which is based for this, or you can see this is for Debian, this is for again Debian, Oracle Linux, RHEL, SUSE Linux, this is for Ubuntu. We need it because we are having a Windows 2016 server on which I have installed a web role, that is your IIS. So we need an agent for the Windows machine, which is this one. So I'll copy it and paste it to my web server. So let's paste it here. So this is going to be my source server, so I'm going to paste that agent here, and once it is done, I need to install it on the source machine. Let's go back to the appliance server and just see the status of registration. So if you just close it, so it says still in progress. Let's wait for some time, and then we'll start. We'll restart the machine and come back here. So I'm going to pause the video for some time. As you can see that the registration has been succeeded. I'll click OK, and I need to restart the machine, so I'm going to restart it. So this is our appliance server. We'll restart it after this installation and the registration of the recovery tool. In the meantime, it gets restarted. Let's go back to the web server. We need to install the agent. This is the agent, so for the Windows operating system. So we'll install it here. I hope in the meantime that other server will come up. So here we're starting the agent installation on our source web server. It says this is basically known as mobility service. So we'll install the mobility service. Next, this is my installation location. So it's checking the prerequisite, then we'll install the binaries and running post-install configurations. So agent installation has been done, but is not configured, so we need to proceed to configuration. Click on proceed to configuration. So it's asking the configuration server IP address. So we need to provide the IP address of the appliance server where the configuration and the process server has been installed. So let's go there and find out the IP addresses. So this is my appliance server. The IP address would be 170.31.32.168. So come back. This is 172.31.32, and let me recheck, and .168. So we might be I need to, okay, now I need to provide the server passphrase, so which I have already copied here. So let's put the passphrase here and register. So now it will start the registering process with the configuration of the process server or in our appliance server. Once the source server gets registered, so it's done. Let's finish it. Once we are done with there, let's go back to our Azure portal and see what are the next steps which we need to take. So if you look at it here, we need to finalize the registration. Currently it shows nothing. Let's close it and reopen the console. So we need to select it again. So let's see. Now it started showing our configuration server. So we need to select that configuration server and finalize the registration. Once your registration is finalized, then you can start searching for your virtual machines. It's going to take some time. Let's pause the video for a moment. Now you can see the registration has been finalized. So it's showing here, it has been showing our appliance server as well, so I'll close it. After some time you will start, let's refresh the tool. It will start reflecting all those how many servers it has discovered, and then we can start the replication part of it. Now as you see, it has already discovered one server. Now we'll start the replication. So click on replicate. It will ask you to select your type of virtualization. So this is not virtualized. Then select an appliance. This is our appliance. Now this is our process server as well as the credentials. Click on next virtual machines. Select your settings from an assessment. We are not migrating, or we have not done any assessment, so we'll say I will specify the migration settings manually, and you can see that there's already it has find out the source web server for us. That is our virtual machine, and that's our source machine basically, which we're gonna migrate to Azure. So I'll select that one and then click on next target settings. In the target settings you would be selecting the resource group in which you want to migrate this source server and your network and the subnet. If these things are not available previously, it will not start showing here, and it should be at the location which you have specified during the creating your migration project. So it should be at this location, and there should be a virtual network as well as a subnet defined. This is my virtual network which I have already created, and this is the default subnet in which I want to migrate these virtual machines. If you already you can make use of your Azure hybrid benefit to save certain amount of money here. I do not have any eligible Windows server license, so I will stay with the no. Next, the compute, where you can find out what would be the VM size and what would be the availability set. Either you can allow Azure to automatically select the matching configuration, or you can drop down and select the configuration you need for the target machine. Similarly, if there's you need availability set, you can select it, but there's currently no availability set, so I'll keep it at the default. Next, the disk, where you can select what kind of a disk you want. So all the selected disk, or if there's some specific disk which you want to replicate, so you can define it, and here you can also find out what kind of a disk you want to have in Azure platform. So I'll go for the standard SSD here. Here I'll review my input, where you can see what you have already selected during previous windows, and then click on replicate. So it will start the initial replication. Once your initial replication completes, then you can perform either task migration or you can straight to migrate your server. So let's click on replicate. So it will start my replication process. It's going to take some time. I'm going to put this video on, pause the video and come back once it's done. So guys, let's check what is the status of our application. Click on the replicating servers, and here we can see that this is my web server, the source server. It has been protected and showing healthy, so I think we can go for the migration now. Either you can click here or you can go back, click on the migrate, and here you can find the server. Now it gives the migrate option gives you an option to shut down your machines before migration. If you shut it down before migration, then there will be that loss will be minimum. And if you don't want to shut it down, you can select no. In that case, a final sync will be done before the migration happens, but there will be still some data remaining which need to be synced later on once your migration gets completed. So I'll go with the no option. I'll select this machine and I'll click on migrate. Now it will start the migration option here. It's going to take some time before the migration completes. Once it's completed, it will start showing here that it will start showing migrate server as 1. So let's wait for some time before the migration completes, and then we'll come back again. So guys, you can see here now the migration has been completed. It started showing that migrate servers 1. Now we can check and find out whether the service is there or not. Let's go back to the home and click on virtual machines. So this is where it will start showing. Here you can see that even the name has been it's the same as it was previously in the AWS platform. So it's source web server. You click on it, so you can see all those details here. This is the public IP which has been assigned. If it is not assigned, you can always go back and change the network configuration of your network interface. Click on copy. Let's say it's working or not. Here you can see the same thing. It was there when it was in AWS. So my web server has been successfully migrated to the Azure, and it's working fine with the change in IP address. I have also assigned a DNS name to this IP address. You can see here, like if I copy it here, if you don't want to use that IP address, you can use this DNS name. It's kind of a URL. See, it's working. So that's it guys. That was all about the